To get started on this exercise, you should have downloaded the Intro to Basic Composition folder, and inside of that we've got a variety of different artworks that we want to use to create our first animation. The first thing we need to do is to launch Adobe After Effects. And if you don't see the New Project panel, you can always click on New Project at the very top, or go up to File, down to New, and choose New Project. From here, click on the New Composition panel to create our first composition and document setup. We're going to name this our Donut Ad. The size of it is going to be a preset. Clicking on the Preset panel, choose HD TV 1080-24. This is going to pre-decide our width and height resolution. Also, our frame rate is going to be 24 frames per second. As far as the resolution, we'll keep everything at full and a start time of 0 seconds. The duration is very important. Make sure you set it to 5 seconds, and the background color can be set to white. If it's not already set to white, you can click on your color picker and choose white from here. From there, say OK, and this will give us our first composition. The first thing we need to bring into our composition is a Photoshop document. This Photoshop document has two different elements and they're on two different layers. We want to be able to individually select each individual part of this, both the circle or the background itself. To do this, in After Effects, go up to File, down to Import, and choose File. From here, locate the background Photoshop document. At the very bottom, we want to import this as a composition, and we want to retain the layer sizes. Say Open. We also want to have editable layer styles. We'll say OK to this. From here, check out your project panel over in the far left. This is going to create a background composition that will show both the background and foreground, but also give us a folder that has the individual layers that we want. We don't need the background composition, so select it, go down to the little trash can at the bottom of the panel, and choose Delete Project. We'll say Delete. This will keep the folder with the two different layers inside of it. To add these to our composition area, click on the background Photoshop layer and simply drag it into your document, and we'll center it up. Then we can choose the circle and drag it into our composition as well. In order to see everything, go down to the very bottom and choose your zoom level from 200% all the way to Fit. This will zoom out and fit everything nicely inside of your document. From here, you can click on the individual elements to move them around and roughly center them up inside of your entire composition. Next, let's import an Illustrator file that has 3 different donuts. We'll go up to File, down to Import, and choose File. Just like with the Photoshop document, the donuts.ai is an Adobe Illustrator file, and it has 3 different layers, each with 3 different donuts all stacked on top of each other. Again, we're going to import these as a composition that retains the layer sizes. We'll say Open. And just like with the other one, this is going to give you a composition called Donuts that has all of them stacked together, as well as a folder that has the individual layers inside of them. We don't need the Donuts folder, or composition, excuse me. So choose the composition, hit Delete. We'll say OK to this warning, but keep the folder. To place the 3 donuts, I'm simply going to click on one, hold down Shift, and click on all 3. You can then click and drag these into your composition. And then from here, you can deselect everything by clicking on the timeline or clicking on a gray area. And then you can click and drag, the individual elements and place them where they need to be. In order to change the stacking order, for instance, I want the pink one to be on top of everything, go down to your timeline, and here you can see all of the different layers that are part of this. I'm going to choose the strawberry, make sure it's on the very top. Now from here, I can click each one and roughly place them where I want the composition to be. That looks good. Now let's animate these donuts into place. Go down to your timeline, and I'm going to lock down the circle and background Photoshop layers. Clicking on the little second box next to their name will allow us to lock it down and not be able to select those circle and background elements. Let's animate this strawberry donut flying into its final placement. Now, since it's already in its final resting spot, we need to add a keyframe at its final resting spot. To do this, let's choose the strawberry layer and twirl open its layer options. From here, you can also twirl open transform, and you can see there's a variety of different things that we can animate. We're going to put our playhead at the 2-second mark. I know it's at 2 seconds because there's also our time stamp right up at the very top. And we're going to click the little stopwatch next to the word position. This is going to add a keyframe directly here. From here, let's return our playhead all the way down to the start 0 position. We can then take our donut and move it off of the frame. If you can't see it, in the playhead, you can hit Command and the minus sign and drag it off to here. Notice that when we do this, this adds a keyframe at the 0 point as well. Now you can test your animation by pressing the spacebar. This will animate your donut into position. Returning to your timeline, select the strawberry layer and press the U key. This will close up everything except the options that we have animated, and in this case it's the position sublayer. Let's repeat this process for the other donuts. Choose the vanilla donut layer, twirl it open to see the transform, and twirl it open again to see all of the animation sublayers. Put your playhead at the 2-second mark and click the position timeline or stopwatch. Since this is the final position, let's move our playhead back to the starting time of 0, 0, then move your donut off a frame. Once this is done, you can click the spacebar and animate this into position for both of them. Again, to only see the position time, click your layer and press the U key. This will twirl everything down so it's nice and seeable. Finally, let's choose the chocolate donut. Twirl it open, twirl open the transform. Let's set our playhead to be 2 seconds and click the position stopwatch. Finally, move your playhead to the starting position of 0, 0 and move it off a frame as well. From here you can press the spacebar and test out each of the animations. Finally, with the chocolate, choose U. This will get rid of all of the unanimated portions so you can see just the parts that we're animating. Going back and forth, you can see how they all come together and how the keyframes give you the timing of each of the moments. Now to collapse all of your layers back to their starting position, you can hit the U key one more time. This will close everything up. Next, let's make these donuts move in a little bit more natural position by adding some easing in and easing out to each of their keyframes. To quickly open any of the layers to see their position movements, you can select all the layers and press the P key. This will show the position animation that we created. We're going to click and drag over the first keyframes to highlight just these first movements of your animation. To add some ease out, go up to Animation, down to Keyframe Assistant, and choose Easy Ease Out. Notice that when you do this, this will create a less than little icon and replacement for your diamond icon that we had before. Now when we play our animation, it'll start off slow and gradually move in. Let's do the same for the last keyframes. Click and drag over those. This time we're going to go up to Animation, down to Keyframe Assistant, and choose Ease In. This will create a little greater than type of icon and will allow it to slow down once it comes into a resting stop. Now they're moving a little bit more natural movement. Once again, press the U key until it closes out and collapses all of these sublayers. Now let's import the word donuts into the middle of our composition. From here, go up to File, down to Import, and choose File. Choose the Donut Words Photoshop document. And as before, we're going to choose a composition that retains a layer size. We'll say OK. And we'll say OK to Editable Layer Styles. This is going to give us the Donut Words composition as well as a folder with just the layer itself. Click and drag this layer onto your composition so that it's in the middle of your document, right about there. We want to have the word donuts scale up in animation. So to do this, with the layer selected, press the S key to twirl open the Scale sublayer. Set your playhead to be at 2 seconds and click the Scale stopwatch. This will add a starting keyframe. We're going to start it at 0% in size. So choosing the size, set 0 for one, and because they're linked together, it'll automatically set the other one to be equal to it as well. This has scaled it down to 0%. Let's move our playhead over to the 3-second mark, and then again in the scale, set that to be 100%. They'll automatically be 100% as well for both of them. When we go to test this, they'll fly in. You can see the donuts will now animate in the size of scale. That's a little bit slow for my taste, so let's adjust the keyframe's position to drag this final keyframe over to the 2.2 second and 12 frame mark. Now when you play, it'll go up a lot faster. As with the others, you can hit the U key and this will twirl it closed. The final thing we're going to add to our composition is the banner. In your project panel, double click on the gray area. This will also allow you to add things to the project panel, just like going to File and Import. Choose the banner PNG. Notice that you can't import it as anything, so it'll just be a folder or a file itself, and choose Open. From here, you can click on the banner, you can drag it into your composition. We want to be able to scale everything down, so with it selected, click on the outer boundaries and hold down the Shift key to constrain the proportions to scale it down. The size of it should be just about the size of your donuts. In order to rotate it slightly, choose your rotation tool, click on the edges, do make sure it's selected, and slightly rotate it. From here, you can click on your selection tool to bring it back. For this animation, we want to animate its opacity or its transparency. So with the banner layer selected, press the T key to twirl open to see the opacity sublayer. With this, since it's already at 100% opacity that we want it to be, set your playhead to be at 3 seconds and click the stopwatch next to the word opacity. Then let's back up our playhead to 2 seconds and 12 frames. Then we can set our opacity down to 0%. Now when we click the spacebar, you can see it will fade in to its opacity. We can then press the U key to twirl everything closed. And if you want, you can back your playhead up and play and see the entire sequences. The final thing we want to do is to add some rotation to our background. Going down to your timeline, unlock the very last background layer and select it. Press the R key to turn on the rotation sublayer. Set your playhead to be at 0 seconds at the very beginning. We're going to press the rotation stopwatch to add a keyframe. Then let's move our playhead to the very end at 5 seconds and set our rotation count, which will be the very first number, to be 1. This is going to allow it to rotate 1 time over the entire play. From here you can press the space bar. You can see how the background will now rotate 1 time as everything else animates on top of it. With everything looking good, the last thing we need to do is to render our video. To do this, go up to File, down to Export, and choose Add to Render Queue. This will open the Render panel at the very bottom next to your timeline. Under the settings, make sure Render Settings, if you click down, is set to Best Settings. Under Output Mode, you can click on the word High Quality, and from here you can change up how you want things to be saved. We're going to save this format as a QuickTime movie. And from here we'll say OK. And the final thing to choose is the Output To. Click on the word Not Yet Specified, and you can choose your folder, or in my case I'm going to choose the desktop of where I want to save this movie to. Make sure the movie is named donutad.mov. And the format, again, will be QuickTime Movie. We'll click Save. The last thing you need to do is to click the word Render at the far right-hand side of the panel. This will take a few seconds to render everything, and you'll get a little ding once it's finished. From here, on our desktop, let's see if I can pull it up, there we go. We should now have a movie file of your entire animation. Once this is finished, upload the movie file and the After Effects file. To save, we can go up to File, down to Save. We're going to call this the Donut Ad and add your name to the file itself. From here, you can close out the entire project by going to File, down to Close Project.